Welcome to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃. With me as always is Mark Ainley. And with us again, Mike Procaccio. Mike, welcome back.
Hey guys, thanks for having me again.
We are excited to have you. We were just debating beforehand. We've been making the guests do the welcomes. On Tuesday tips, though, we didn't know I think we might have had Workman do one, though.
I'm not sure.
We might have to, if you come back, we might make you do that Tuesday.
We'll see. I'll
the
practice
welcome.
that.
Mike's jaw did drop when he thought he had to do it. So if anything, that was worth just the conversation around thinking he had to do it.
Yeah. So, all right. So we talked about a couple nice little nuggets offline, and we bundled them together here. And what Mike's going to just provide is what you can do as an investor, or even just as a listener, even if you don't have investment properties yet, during the tax off season. So when tax time comes around, you're ready to roll. So with that, Mike, take it away.
All right, so first thing that I want everyone to do is go and create an IRS online account.
Ah, geez, why? No, that sounds painful.
It's actually not that bad. There's no cost. It's free. And when you sign up, it gives you a bunch of useful information. So when you sign up, you can see whether or not your tax return was filed, whether there's an extension filed, and you can get copies of all your tax transcripts. And you guys know what a transcript is?
My accountant does.
Your accountant is perfect.
Hey, real quick, though, to go set this up, like, is this something you do? Is this something your accountant does? Do you just have to talk to him or her beforehand? Like, who does this?
This is something you would be doing by yourself.
Okay.
So it's going to ask you personal information that only you would know in order to get the account set up. So the transcripts are helpful. There's 4 different kinds. You have a return transcript, which basically kind of is a copy of your 1040. It shows most of the lines of your 1040, and it won't show any of the changes you made after the filing. And so when you guys are going for a loan, I'm sure you're familiar with the form 4506. That is getting the transcripts, and that's what the
4506T, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Look at me.
You're a taxpayer. The account transcript is the transcript you get once any changes have been made to your tax return. Say you file a tax return and you forget that you had an estimated tax payment. That was a change. That's what you would get. The record of account transcripts is a combination of the first two. The last one is the wage and income transcript, and that shows all your earnings throughout the year that was reported to the IRS. So anytime you got a W-2, a 1099, or any of that is reported on this transcript. And that's useful just to like audit what you got if you get a lot of 1099s to see what was actually reported. And that is the transcript part. There's
But
also
why do we need that information? I guess so. Why is that important?
Well, it's important. I know it's going to sound bad, but if your accountant dies, which it happens, we've had accountants die while preparing people's tax returns, not for us, but other people have come in, and you have no way of getting your tax information because a lot of times it's a single practitioner. They'll pass away, and so does all their information. So they basically turn off the computers, throw them away, and they don't have any access to any of their information. And so this is helpful. So you could get your information. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to show every single line of the 1040, but it's going to show enough to be like, hey, this is what I did in previous years to your new accountant, and they'll be able to work off of that. Also on the online account, you can make payment options on there. You can make payments for amounts you owe, amended tax returns, estimated tax, just to name a few.
Can you make quarterly payments on there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to write checks for that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I hate that. That's a painful check to write too.
I got like a big nasty letter because I owed like $42 or something. Like we were off just a little bit. Like that's something you just go check, right? Like
the key is when you make the payment, you got to print that confirmation page. Control-P, print the page, and you're good to go. Put it in a folder, and you are all set. And also on there for the people who make estimated payments, sometimes you forget what you paid. It has the payment history on there. So you can go there and see when you paid it, how much it was, and all that.
No way.
Yeah. And in the future, it's going to get even better. They're going to have more digital notices on there. So you'll get the letters. It'll also be online so you can see those. They're going to have expanded payment options and secure two-way messaging. So if you have a non-time sensitive matter, you need a question you have to ask the IRS, you can send them a message. A couple days later, they'll get a response instead of sitting on hold for however many hours. So that's really helpful with that.
How does this help the relationship between the accountant and the investors? It's just the flow of information, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's just good to have because I know I like to sign on and go on the accounts and make sure like, hey, we e-filed your tax return. This will say, yes, it's been e-filed. So it's kind of confirming everything they've been doing. And then once you get your transcripts, you can see them compared to your tax return and all that. And that's just, I always like having that.
Well, do you, as accountants, the professionals, do you guys have access to like something we don't? Like, are you able to go in there and see what's been filed? Like, how do you know, like, if you're filing mine and you're not sure if it went through, how do you look that up from like the practitioner side?
Our programs, you'll be able to see if it was e-file accepted or rejected.
Gotcha.
And that's what we'll go through next with the identity protection, because that's a big thing now. And the IRS has something called an IP pin, which is identity protection pin. And basically what that is a 6-character or 6-digit code. It changes every year. You have to pass an identity verification process in order to get one. And it's basically multi-factor authentication for your tax return. And what that does is it prevents someone from filing a tax return with your social security number.
You got screwed on something like this.
This is going back 7 or 8 years. I had my identity stolen from my tax return. They had my signature, my social, copy of my driver's license, which they went and made a fake. And I'm talking like 6 figures of damage. All got taken care of. But the guy got a Dewey in Florida while they were chasing him. Tom Shawcross got the Dewey. They gave me my license. It was his picture with my information and my signature. Wow. So it was just a complete hassle. So yes.
So this, like I said, it will prevent someone from filing a tax return with your social. And you can also get it for your dependents, your spouse, and all that. So as long as they can pass the identity verification process, you can get an IP pin. And if they go and try and file a tax return with your social security number, it's going to get rejected because they don't have that second piece of information.
Now, is that a pin like you would give then your accountant then?
So when you go to do your taxes, you should be providing that to your tax preparer.
Let me ask a question before going further. We're talking about this all kind of on your personal name, but what if you have multiple entities? Like I have a holding company, obviously we have these other different parent companies. Like, would you go get one of these for each one of those, or is this only on an individual level?
I believe it's for only individual right now. I'd have to double check to see if you can get it on entities, but I know for a fact you can get it on personal right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And with the, let's see here. So yeah, and if you want to get one, you go to the IRS website and you get get an IP pin tool. And it's pretty straightforward. They ask you those questions like, where did you live 5 years ago? All those crazy questions. And if you ever forget your pin or misplace it, you can go there and you can retrieve the pin that way. So that's very useful, and we have a lot of people where that's safe because that really saves you. I mean, as you know, a lot of hassle, and I'm assuming if you're going for a loan to buy a new property, that's not gonna make things easier having a fraudulent tax return filed. Yeah.
It's one of those things you only think of when it happens to you, right? Otherwise, you go about your day to day.
And the worst part is if they got a refund for it, and you also file a tax return, yours will get rejected, and then you have to go file a paper return with the IRS, and then they have to investigate what's the real tax return. And then that can take, we've had clients take over a year to get their refunds back because they have to figure out, make sure you're not the fraudulent one. So it's always a project when that happens.
Now, I imagine it's beneficial because I know I had, it was a small issue. It was like $100 issue last year. And I had to call the IRS about, and I couldn't get a hold of them. So I imagine some of these online tools will help shortcut or make it actually possible for you to actually to two-way messaging and stuff like that. It's hard to get a hold of anyone live there anymore.
IRS, to their credit, I know we don't give them a lot of credit, but they have drastically reduced the wait times on the phone. But still, this is all helping with AI and all that stuff to reduce the wait times. The two-way messaging is going to be great when that comes along. And I think, they're all good steps over there.
Very good.
Yeah.
Anything else before we wrap here?
Yeah, just when you should go see your tax advisor for tax planning. Just want to talk about that real quick.
October 14th.
Yeah, at the last possible minute. No, now is a great time because we just finished tax season. We're churning through all the extensions. We have a little bit extra time on our hands right now. So
I thought you guys don't work for the rest of the year. Am I wrong?
Yeah, teacher schedule, baby.
Yeah, I thought you guys are good till.
But with tax planning, you're going to want to see, and this is not an exhaustive list, but these are some high points. If you changed jobs, got a large raise, got married, divorced, had a significant stock sale. And one that people don't think about is if you went from a 2-income household to a 1-income household or vice versa. So say you had a stay-at-home parent, then went back to work, or your parents were both working and one of them stayed home with the kids. So that can really affect your tax situation. And were you going to say something?
No.
Oh. And the number one question we get from people who don't tax plan is, why do we owe this year? And that varies based on a huge number of factors. But most of the time, it can be attributed to not having enough withheld on your paychecks. And when you go to a tax planning review, you're going to review all your withholding for this year so far, and then you're going to project out for the remainder of the year and see where you're at. Maybe you need to adjust your W-4, make some estimated payments, and you can adjust your W-4 so you have more take-home pay, so you're using more of the money throughout the year instead of getting a gigantic refund at the end of the year. So you save money with just paying interest on the credit cards. And if you're not going to go see a tax advisor for it, I would recommend using the IRS tax withholding estimator tool. You can also find that on the IRS website, and I'm sure we can probably put a link in the notes or something. And for all that. And rental property owners, it's always good to talk with your advisor. If you buy a new equipment, new HVAC, dishwasher, hot water heater, if you had to evict someone and you didn't get rent for like 6 months, that's going to change things. If you got a long-term tenant out of there and jacked up rent $500 or $600 a month, that's going to change things. So you can review the P&L and just make plans for the future for that tax year. And same thing with the business owners. Review the P&L. If you have a big profit that year, it might be a good time to purchase that piece of equipment you've been waiting for, or to update your offices. If you don't, maybe it's time to hold off. Maybe wait till next year. So
build a studio.
Yeah, build a studio. It's nice down here.
I had one solid takeaway from this.
Yeah.
Be careful if you're working with an old accountant because he's going to die. And work with a guy that's 42 years old, like Mike,
That's the
in his
takeaway.
40s, like Mike. Like that's what I heard. I heard the pitch for go with a younger CPA if you're looking for somebody.
Succession plan. It's very important to have that because every year we're like, yeah, my guy, we got a letter in January. It says we're no longer doing taxes anymore. Good luck. And that's that. So every single year, and that's happening more and more because there's not a lot of people going in the accounting industry.
One of my earlier accountants I worked with, I asked that question. Said, "What's your 10-year plan, man?" Like you lay that out for me, and usually you guys are planners,
Yeah.
so when you're retiring. So if you get that note in January, that's just bad communication.
Yeah. It's they've hung it up, and a lot of them, they're like, we get calls where they're like, yeah, my accountant told me not to call. And it's like, well, what do you mean not to call? Like, don't call, I'll call you. It's like, okay, so how do you do anything? So it's just, you need to have someone that's responsive, that you get along with, that, is there to help you along the way and not just do tax prep. You actually have to do tax planning, which is an important part.
Yep. Cool. Let's wrap.
All right.
Who we playing for?
All right. Dawn Deberson, we're playing. She bought a t-shirt on 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏investor.com merch store. And Dawn, if myself or Mike get this question right, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by Pro Financial Services Group.
All right, so you're just down by the railroad tracks here. We're in Roselle recording in the underground. I believe that's what we're starting to call this,
Yep,
right?
I referenced it yesterday. We're calling this
the underground. All right. GROWD and WD. You gotta spell it weird. All right, so we're in Roselle, so I got a Roselle question for you. In what year did Roselle establish its first public library?
Oh,
And your options are accounting question. I figured I'd go library. 1951, 1961, 1971, or 1981.
one of our friends is on the library board, and she's going to be upset if I get this wrong. I'm going to have to say 61.
I always said 51, funded by the Carnegie Library Fund.
61.
right.
Look at you, sir.
Nice
Work, Michael.
All right, well, Don, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by Pro Financial Service Group and this fine young gentleman, Mike, sitting here. So,
Yeah.
Mike, thanks for coming back. Tom, thanks as always. Listeners, we just updated the meetups on 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏investor.com. Go check it out. Summer, a lot of outdoor activities, a lot of good networking. You got to get out. You got to meet people. You got to be talking about what you're doing with like-minded people. So go there and find something close to you. Mike, thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Tom, thank you. Listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks all.